February 18th, Jerry Seinfeld was performing in New York at his home theater. And normally when Jerry Seinfeld performs, has anyone seen him live before? Yeah, so you may know that whenever he performs live, normally the person who opens for Seinfeld is a guy named Tom Papa, who's a great stand-up, really accomplished guy, very funny, sadly now known as the guy who opens for Jerry Seinfeld. But not on February 18th of 2016. Because on that night, the announcer came over the sound system and said, you know, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Jerry Seinfeld Show, and please welcome your special guest, Steve Martin. Now, if you're under, this is the Bo Burnham of my generation. If you're over 40, don't worry about who Bo Burnham is. But Steve Martin, so this was the revolutionary. This was somebody who took creativity through action and applied it to a discipline which is already known as being creative. He was the disruptor in stand-up comedy before we even using that term. Late 60s, early 70s, this guy was on fire. In my hometown, in Toronto, at Maple Leaf Gardens, the massive arena, in the late 60s, only 3 people sold out Maple Leaf Gardens that were non-athletic events: the Beatles, Elvis Presley, and Steve Martin. So this guy was on fire. He changed the way stand-ups looked, the way they acted, the way they sounded, how they dressed, whether they telegraphed a punchline or how they used props, everything. And he's now, through the 70s, starts to sell out stadiums, which hadn't happened in stand-up before. And then 1981, Steve Martin's performing in a stadium, and he looks out and he sees something for the very first time. An empty block of seats. And then boom, that night, Steve Martin quit doing stand-up comedy. Steve Martin did not do stand-up comedy for 35 years until he opened for Jerry Seinfeld on February 18th of 2016. Comedy Central voted Steve Martin number 6 in the top 100 stand-up comedians of all time. He hadn't done it in 35 years. How the heck does that happen? It happens because he committed to a constant and consistent personal reinvention. And from that night in 81, boom, he quits doing stand-up, and then he starts writing screenplays. And then he starts writing novels and starts writing plays, to the point that 2 summers ago, Steve Martin was the lead curator of a Lauren Harris exhibit that toured art galleries around North America. Constant personal reinvention. So when we talk about organizational creativity, doing big, bold brand work, and doing exceptional creative thinking, that's on you 100%. Organizations don't change, people do.